Good afternoon, everyone. It is now 3:30 and time to call to order the Committee on Administration for the County of Dunn. And I'm going to take a roll call so that anyone listening or watching this later can know who is all here. As far as the committee members, myself, Vaughn Hilton, I'm the chair. We, Dave Bartlett, our County Board Chair. David, are you here?
Yes.
Okay, Tim Leno.
Here.
John Calabrese.
Here.
James Tripp.
Here.
And we also have, where did Sheila go? Sheila Story.
And I'm here also.
Okay, along with our committee members, we have a number of staff here. And so you'll be hearing from them also. Approval of minutes. Our last meeting was convened on February 25th, 2021. I have a motion to approve those minutes.
Supervisor Leno, I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from last meeting.
Thank you, Tim.
I'll second that.
Seconded by Chairman Bartlett. Any comments or concerns or corrections? Okay, hearing none. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? Passes. Staff reports. Again, you should have received a series of staff reports in your packets. Any of the supervisors have any questions or comments for any concerning any of the staff reports?
I do.
Okay, Dave, you're first, and then Jim Tripp.
Mine is down a ways. I have to find it for Dan. I see you're evaluating best practices for in-person and hybrid county board and committees meetings. I just wanted to mention that I was at a CVTC meeting Monday, and they did that. There was about half the people were on Zoom, and about half of us were in person, probably a dozen or more in person, and then pretty close to that in Zoom. Worked very well. They had a big screen going plus a couple of TVs. So everybody, no matter where you were sitting, could see a screen. And I don't know how they worked it, but they were sitting in a square around tables were set up in a square so we could social distance. People from the public were behind us, and you could see pretty much everybody on the screen. So I just wanted to mention that that's what I'm envisioning for us. So I'm hoping we can come up with something like that. And then I had two other questions that I didn't notice on your report, but I think we're working on changing our web design or our website. Where are we in that?
Yeah, we are. Yes, I did not include that on there. We have a meeting about that tomorrow or on Monday. We are kind of finalizing some of the navigation. So, you know, what all of those menus are going to look like and getting that finalized, where we have a call out for some of the background images that'll be a part of that. So we're moving along. I'm not specifically sure, you know, as far as a timeline as to when we're gonna do that. I'll play my new guy card. I've only been to one meeting there, but yeah, so we are moving forward with that, and I can provide you some more information around a timeline and when we expect to get that out.
Yeah. I would appreciate it if you kept me up to date on when you come up with a date that it'll be improved. I receive questions from people every once in a while. Yesterday, I received one on the LOSG report, and I actually, I had to go in and try to find it myself, and I did find it going into Word and then LOSG document. It was listed there, and I could pull it up, but it is a little bit difficult to do, and I don't know. People do complain every once in a while and let me know about it, and so I appreciate if it gets a little better. Thank you.
Will do. Yep.
Oh, and I was going to mention, I don't know if there's any public comment, but we kind of skipped that, Paul or Vaughn.
I'm sorry, we did, yeah, and there was none. Yeah.
Okay. I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Jim Tripp, Supervisor Tripp.
You're muted, Jim. Jim, you're muted.
Did you have a question, Jim?
And you couldn't read my lips.
Well, we tried, but the mustache.
I apologize for that. Mr. Miller, item number 7, you talked about working on the future of the Dunn County Fair. Can you elaborate just a little bit? Is that this year because of COVID, or are we looking at a more broader, longer range?
We're looking at a longer term. It's not specific to this year. What we're doing at the staff level is working with the Fair Board on examining kind of the future of the Dunn County Fair and the relationship of the county with the fair. As you know, in the past, we've included the fair's budget in our budget. In the past, the county has contributed money. We've pulled back on the money contributions, but there's still a lot of very gray areas in terms of the official role of the county vis-a-vis the fair. And the fair has its own wish list of how it would like to see, for instance, access to the rec park, the potential for revenue generation by allowing other uses when it's not the fair, as takes place on other fairgrounds in other counties in the state. So the Fair Board is meeting and talking about it, and facilities is a committee of the county board is involved in that discussion as well. We've had Corporation Counsel along with myself and Scott Nobbyfeld, who is our facilities director, and John Swirsky, who is our public works director, and then Supervisor Chuck Maves, who's the chair of facilities committee, all working with the Fair Board, with the president of the Fair Board, Deb Gottliebson, on that. We hope to have something coming to the facilities committee in terms of, if nothing else, a wish list from the fair for the future next month.
Dare I ask if there's a decision on a fair this year?
There is not a hard and fast set in concrete decision, but the intention is to have one. What it will be, whether it will be a hybrid, remains to be seen. That decision has not been made.
Okay, thank you. I have another question as well for Mr. Miller, and that's item number 10. You working on some hazmat service? I got notified recently that I'm on some kind of a hazmat committee. Can you?
The hazmat issue relates to the equipment. The county owns the truck and the trailer. The truck needs to be replaced, as does the trailer. So we contract with City of Menominee's fire department for the hazmat service, and we provide flow through of grant funds every year to them. We're in a contract with them where we're obligated to provide $5,000 worth of support. We actually in flow through over the years have traditionally done more than that. And so the conversation this time focused on the sale of the truck, the existing truck and trailer, and the proceeds going to the Menominee Fire Department for purchase of new.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And as a matter of fact, the emergency management report to the Judiciary and Law Committee on Monday indicates that that has been accomplished. I have a question for Mr. Stride, the financial director, if I might. Mr. Stride, you indicated in your first bullet point that you're evaluating the impact of the county of the COVID funds. Do you plan at any time in the foreseeable future to enlighten the supervisors as to what the heck we're looking at here?
That is the approximately $9 million question. Yes, there is an intent. There are a ton of details and a complete lack of guidance. I mean, there's just general
That's the way we like it.
characterizations. Yeah, but unfortunately, there are hooks. We had a very tough learning curve with the CARES Act.
Okay,
They made these statements that, you could use them. It was a little narrower focus, but still, even within that narrow focus, it got really detailed and granular as far as eligibility. So, a lot of details to sort through. As the county manager knows, I'm signing up for every possible webinar session to learn. But right now, NACO's lobbying the Treasury, U.S. Treasury, to get clarity from them and guidance, because one of the goals of this was to keep it supposedly a little less complex or a little more flexible for counties and in particular. But yet we know anytime there's money handed out, there are strings to them. HR is doing a lot of research as well on the impact to staffing. So there's a number of us that are looking at it from a couple different perspectives. And then I know Chairman Bartlett and I had a conversation, a lot of ideas. We just don't really have clear guidance on what's eligible. One of the cautions that I'm hearing routinely from experts across the country is we've got time. We don't have to make snap decisions here, unlike we did with the CARES Act and the routes to recovery that came from the state of Wisconsin. We have until the end of 2024 to use them. And we're being strongly advised to really think through the impact to operations and budgets in the future, so you don't put yourself in a bad spot. The other thing is keeping in mind there's huge buckets of money going to states and the federal government for CDBG housing and energy assistance and things like that. And you want to make sure that you don't use your local allotment for something where there's other opportunities for grant funding elsewhere. So it may be some time before we have some clarity, but that is definitely on our radar. And in fact, that's why it wasn't included in the CIP discussion for the workshop next week, because there just are no answers at this point.
I appreciate that answer. Thank you. And since the agenda for next week's budget meeting was kind of set in terms of capital projects anyway, I didn't really expect it there. Am I right? Is this new money coming directly from the federal government, or is it being channeled through the State Department of Administration or whatever?
Unfortunately, for counties that are not, or local units of government that are not entitlement entities, it will be passed through the state. The legislation says the first payment is to be released by the U.S. Treasury on or before 60 days after signing, which was March 11th. And in our case, as a non-entitlement county, then it goes to the state of Wisconsin, and they have up to 30 days to release it to us. I don't know. I'm sure, hoping that there are no administrative cuts on it. We don't know. I haven't heard. We'll see where that goes. And then the second payment is supposed to be distributed that same method within 12 months after the signing as well.
Thank you. I have another question, this one for Heather Murray, in terms of, in her report under Benefits Administration and Wellness. About halfway through that, there's a bullet point that says, continue to review of potential near-site clinic to offer services. I don't know what that means.
Sure. Excuse me. So when we were doing our benefits review at renewal time, one of the concepts that we had talked about was a near-site clinic and partnering with a local for our employees, since we have an HSA. And so it's a concept that it takes a long time to review and figure out to make sure that we will see cost savings. But I'm just going to use, your regular annual exam as an example. If you go to Mayo, the cost to the employee is $0, but the cost of the plan is maybe $350 to $400 per employee. And we want them to do that. If you partner with a near site clinic, the cost to the plan can be reduced quite a bit, depending on if there's labs and things down down to maybe $40 to $45. And so it's just reviewing and being able to do that cost analysis. It has taken quite some time because you need to be able to look at overall claims data and figure out where the dollars are being spent and if that's a possibility. So working with our benefits broker to just try and find ways to save costs to the plan to keep us from having large increases each year on the health plan.
And I certainly appreciate that. The term near site clinic is geographic.
It is geographic. So I think the catchy trend early on was on-site. And so then you had to provide space and you had to provide doctors and nurses. Instead, the current trend is just to find a near site already established clinic and partner with them. And then they can partner with multiple agencies. And so you tend to see an even bigger reduction in what it would cost your organization because you're kind of sharing that clinic. So it would be a location, and we're trying to look at where our employee base not only works but lives. So we're trying to find a clinic that would have sites available in, say, Chippewa, Eau Claire, Hudson, and Menominee. Is kind of our goal. And so that because you also want it available to families, your kiddos are using the plan as well. And so we want to make sure that families are able to get to those clinics that have a lesser cost.
So it's near site geographic, not near site myopic.
Well, it could have been some other near, I don't know, but I just wanted to make sure. Thank you, Heather. I appreciate that. I have a question for Julie Woski. You note in your report, Julie, that there have been a number of open records requests without disclosing any confidential information. Can you elaborate on that a little bit in terms of the Elections Commission?
Well, we received two extremely large records requests, one more significant than the other. Nick and I worked together to prepare a response. I don't have the exact number. I believe it was $6,000 some to execute that request. So it's back in their hands, the requester, as to they would need to pay for that upfront prior to starting. That involves basically all the documentation we have in the vault from the 2020 presidential and wanting copies of all those documents. Does that answer your question, or did you?
That's enough. Yeah, I'm just kind of wondering what sort of requests they might have been. That's fine. Thank you.
Yep.
And thank you for your patience, everyone. I'm finished, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Tripp. Any other supervisors with any questions for the staff? Okay, hearing none. Next item on our agenda is consideration for actions taken by this committee. First,
Vaughn, I think John had a question.
oh, I'm sorry, John.
I'm sorry, I was muted.
Oh,
Sorry.
okay. Thanks.
Thank you.
Go ahead, John.
For the county manager on number 2, it says coordinating with state representatives on their participation in the county's legislative agenda. Is that just with those who participated, or with all of them, or is it just
I reached out to all of our state senators and all of our congressmen, and really there was nobody else that was in a position to do it. So I had to reach out to each of them individually to their offices, send them the agendas, to give them the link for the Zoom meeting. I got promises of attendance from all of them. I don't want to make a commentary about what that says about political promises, because we had, as you recall, 3 who actually participated, but that's what that was about.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And then one more thing, if I may, Mr. Chair, maybe we'll get to it in announcements, but the county treasurer put in her report a thank you to us for the past several years, which I appreciate, even though I haven't been here for several years. So I just want to thank her as well, Mrs. Meyer, for her service.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I truly do appreciate all the support that you guys have given me over my term of the past several years. That's truly appreciated.
Yes, I was going to mention thank you to both Julie and Doris, and maybe I should do it now in case they step out of the meeting before we're done. But anyway, thank you to both of them. This is probably their last meeting.
Well,
Like-
we'll make Julie show up for the workshop on the 29th. She doesn't get off that easy.
Yeah, I guess I meant the last admin meeting. for
You're
the
correct.
two of them.
Yes.
I want to echo Doris's comments and thank you for all the support over the past 7.5 years. And who knows, maybe our paths will cross again in life. And I just appreciate the opportunity you had given me all these years. So thank you.
I just like to say, as chair of the committee, that it's been a pleasure and appreciate the professionalism from both of you. It's you've been very easy to work with, and appreciate that all the way along the way. Thank you. All right. Directional plan 6A. We had some information included by Mr. Miller. Paul, did you want to highlight that?
Sure, just very quickly. At our last meeting of the Committee on Administration, we talked about how each of the standing committees of the county board are reviewing the initiatives that are included in the Dunn County Directional Plan with an eye toward crafting a policy where we are able, and for those initiatives which we can craft a policy, also coming up with a list of implementation techniques. For the Committee on Administration, the most germane of the initiatives for this committee to take under consideration relates to public information. The question in the directional plan was, how can we better communicate and share information both internally and externally? To that end, you have a staff report in your packet of materials, which has a draft policy that staff put together, along with implementation techniques that focus primarily on IT solutions to public outreach and public information. Dan Dunbar worked with me on coming up with that list of implementation techniques. What this committee is being asked to do today is review what staff has put together, offer any amendments, any changes, deletions, or additions to either the policy itself, the language of the policy, or to the implementation techniques themselves, and forward that final version of the policy and techniques to the executive committee for consideration of inclusion as an amendment to the overall directional plan.
Okay, thank you, Paul. I guess at this point, I'd like to ask if someone would make a motion to approve the plan, and then we can discuss or talk about amendments. Anyone care to make that motion?
Tripp, I will move.
Okay, thank you, Jim. Supervisor Tripp moves.
I'll take a second.
Okay, Supervisor Tim Lino seconds. Now, are there any questions or comments or changes that anyone would like to see implemented in the plan as it was written? There's 2 pages to it if you have it in front of you. Otherwise, we'll go for it. Jim Tripp.
First of all, I want to congratulate Paul and whoever worked on this. I think the policy is thorough, appropriate, addresses the needs. I have one question, and let me just tell you what it is. Some of what we're talking about here is regulated by statute in terms of open records and open meetings and stuff. There is no mention of the legal requirements in this policy, and I don't know if there should be. What I'm doing is simply suggesting that, is that something we need to think about? Corp counsel might have an opinion on whether it's, I don't think it's necessary because it's implied, but just kind of want.
If I may jump in before Corp counsel, because I did consider that in crafting this policy. The reason I didn't put it in there is we don't have any say in that. We have an obligation to meet the statutory requirements for public information. So it's not necessary in the Dunn County policy to reiterate what's already an obligation on our part. We already recognize it. Well, I felt it was important to craft a policy that reflected Dunn County's values with respect to public outreach, and that's why it is absent the policy itself.
Paul's correct. This is a this is a higher level, kind of a macro policy, a macro level policy. And any department or program or agency that's providing information is going to have to be conscientious about not disclosing or not including information that can't be released. And as much as it pains me to say it, there may be information that it might not be advisable to simply make gratuitously available, even if it's subject to disclosure under the public records law. But I think all of that stuff can be handled at a lower level, at the staff level, at the county manager level, as we develop what additional information will come on to the website, develop protocols for releasing and reviewing records and so forth. I think all that stuff will get worked in there. This is just a real high level county board level aspirational policy,
Okay, Jim, go ahead.
You're still muted, Jim.
There we go.
There we go.
Kind of what I was thinking about is that the directional plan is a document not only for the County Board of Supervisors, but for the public as well. And as a member of the public looking at this particular item, would they expect to find something in there saying, yes, and we will obey the law?
And if I may, I can see the value of doing that. On the other hand, if we were consistent, we are going to substantially increase the size of the directional plan by reference to all of the things that we have statutory obligations to follow, not just public outreach. So as a matter of consistency, again, I think the directional plan, I know, as crafted, is a statement from Dunn County about its values, about what it prioritized, about where it wants to put its attention. And it is irrespective of what we are obligated to do under the laws. So this statement in particular, in terms of public information, there's nothing in the statement that says we absolve ourselves from our statutory requirements. What it is on top of things that we are minimally required to do by law as a unit of local government, this is an expression of our commitment to do more, to enhance our communication. And that's why I would argue against putting in references to our statutory obligations.
I agree.
Any other questions or comments?
I have a comment, Mr. Chairman, if I could.
Thank you. John Calabrese, go ahead.
I really like this as well, and especially, well, several points, but the create simple to use online public input forms for all public meetings and issues, I think is a great idea. And I know this is just an overview, but I'm really looking forward to see what that looks like. Is that maybe something that's in real time during a meeting, or just for public comments at the beginning, or what's the thought on that? Just curious.
The thinking, as far as procedures, it's better to have public comments at the beginning of a meeting. Meetings, standing committee meetings, county board meetings are business meetings. And we've talked about it before, the obligation, there is no statutory obligation for public input, but we've expressed a clear intention to accommodate that. So it would be anticipated that what we're talking about is along the lines of what we're doing now, which is if somebody wants to make a public comment, they can have access to the Zoom meeting. But this is also something that's in flux that we may be able to do better to make it easier for them to provide that input, make it easier for them to follow along the meeting. But in terms of participation, it is not intended to scatter public comment throughout the course of the meeting. And there's very practical reasons for that, which have to do with the conduct of the business of the county.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
And yeah, I was looking at the website earlier, and where could we as supervisors, if it's not in through this committee, have a little input as to the design of the website? And I'm no web designer, I'm no computer person, but there are some things that I think are great on there, like the GIS maps and
Mhm.
and the tapestry. But I think people don't know what tapestry means, and it just says tapestry, and elaborating on that. And also the social media aspect, which I am a little more addicted to than the Dunn County website. The word Instagram is missing an A, and I hate to besmirch that huge corporation.
That's because
But-
I typed it and Instagram and all that stuff came after I was already apologize for the typo.
But I think that could really help too, like getting some of those, because people don't know
Sure.
about those maps, and they're really great. So
No, we have every intention of continuing to provide the content that we have, and in fact, enhancing that content. We hadn't really talked through the procedure, but I could certainly see the value once Dan and his team have arrived at a template or a vision for the upgrade, bringing it through the Committee on Administration before making it live. So you do have a chance to see. We may even be able to pop up a version of it, Dan. You can correct me if I'm wrong, which will allow us to, toggle the buttons and see how they work so that you get some sense of the flow. And we may also want to do a beta test where we distribute it to certain persons. This committee could certainly be one of them, where they get an opportunity, say for a month, to play with it and give real feedback before we make it live to the whole. What do you think, Dan?
Yeah, the plan, the path that we were going to go down is to complete a completely separate parallel site. So we will actually have another site available that we can share and provide feedback and receive feedback on that. And I think to your point of like tapestry and pieces like that, when I mentioned we're looking at the navigation, that's my tech speak for we're trying to look at those words in the paths that people follow in order to get that. And I think a lot of it is built around the structure and the knowledge of the people that are integrated into the county, and we know how this all works, and we're trying to look at gearing that more towards somebody who doesn't know the inner workings of the county so that they can better find their path to where they're going. So yes, when I said working on navigation, that's what I meant. And so and it's hard as insiders. Well, I'm not really a new guy card, second time. So I do kind of have that perspective from that outside as well as we look at that. So
great, sounds good. Thank you both.
Mr. Chair,
Sheila, go ahead.
the only thing that I would add is I know a lot of times our schools come to our website as a resource because they oftentimes in their civics classes and different things have questions about things. And I've been asked to speak to classes before and they've commented on how difficult it is to find out certain information. One of the links that I think that would be a benefit, not only to the county, but to us ourselves, is anytime we're asked to write our legislator or to phone our legislature or to talk to them, you need to remember who they are. And we may know who they are, but our county doesn't always remember who they are. And I think it would probably be great to have that list on there, their email and their phone numbers, so that if there ever is a reason that they want to contact them, they have an easier way of finding that information.
Directory of elected officials.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's easy enough to do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Julie,
Anyone else?
Julie Waski has her hand up.
That information is on my page of the website, the directory of public officials that we compile each year. It is on the website on my page on a quick reference. So just for your information.
So it may be a matter of
A
making
link.
it more obvious on the front page.
Exactly. And as a link.
Very good. Chairman Bartlett, did you have
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, I wanted to talk about the website too, a couple of things, and there's just like Sheila brought up, there's so much information on there. It's just difficult to find sometimes. And in the last 2 weeks, I've had somebody ask me about how do I do public comment. I've asked how do I find emails for county board supervisors. I was asked how to find what do I do if I need a new fire number. All that information is there. It's just like what Sheila brought up. It's not always real easy to find. And it might be easier for me to find it. Anyway, I've found it all. I've answered every question and called the people back and directed them how to find it, this stuff. But they were having problems. So, you know, our website needs to be, and I know you're working on it. The thing I really wanted to bring up is we have a number. I don't know what number it is. On my sheet, I guess they're all the same number, 0. But anyway, the update every few years on the county website. I think that should be reviewed every year by probably this committee or some committee, probably this one. But at least just to talk about it and see how's it going. Ask some questions. Have you heard any comments? You know, just stuff like that. I think instead of every few years, it should be every year. Thank you.
And we could certainly craft that particular bullet point as review and update.
Anyone else? Any more questions or comments? Okay, hearing none, do we need to do any amendments to this, Paul, based on the comments?
The motion on the table was to approve it as it was written. So an amended motion to approve it as discussed would be in order.
Okay.
And
all right.
we could present that with the original motion was made by Supervisor Tripp and seconded by Supervisor Lenow, but an amended motion to include the comment specific to the review or update of the county website would be appropriate.
So move.
My motion to include those things.
Okay, Chairman Bartlett, so moved. And then seconded by Supervisor Story. Any other comment at this point? Okay, hearing none. We're voting then now on the amended version based on the comments and the information we've discussed.
No,
all those in favor say.
We have to move. We have to vote on the amendment.
What do we have?
yeah, technically, you're voting on the amendment and
Amendment
then
first.
And then it goes back to the original.
All right. Okay, this all those in favor of the amended version based on discussion, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, now we can go back and with the amended version, all those in favor of passing this forward, say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. Great discussion, great comments. A lot of you picked up on some things that I had concerns too, so I think it worked out well. Next is approval of continuation of temporary policies related to COVID-19. Do we still have our director here in terms of personnel?
Yes.
You are, okay, I'm sorry. I didn't see, I was looking for your name on the list. Okay, go ahead, Heather.
So in January, we visited whether or not to voluntarily extend these temporary policies. And I mentioned that we had extended them through March 31, which followed the guidelines that were out at that time, extending the FFCRA. Since then, additional guidance has come out. The original information was that they were extending that through end of September. September. And so that's what you see in front of you. Of course, since I've drafted this, then the American Rescue Plan has also been signed, which was signed on March 11th. And so as Keith mentioned, they sign things and then the guidance comes in phases to us. So we don't have a lot of information on what the rest of it means. So we brought today the temporary policies just requesting to extend through the end of September. And then I'm going to ask Jenna, I've asked Jenna Lee Nutter to watch the American Rescue Plan. And so I think she has just a really brief snippet of an update, if that would be okay, Supervisor Headland, that she can provide that update, and then likely we'll have more information next month with further revisions recommended.
Well, that'd be fine. Do we have Jenna Lee here?
Hello, I'm here.
Okay.
Yeah, so we are, as Heather mentioned, reviewing the act and determining what implications may be to the emergency paid sick leave. And also to the emergency family and medical leave policies. We expect further guidance to come out on that. So as we receive that, we will be ultimately working on a recommendation, and we'll bring that forward to the committee meeting in April.
The other things, that and the object change. So the vaccinations
Heather,
are
Heather,
out,
I'm sorry to interrupt,
and
but you
people
wanna
are
back up?
receiving vaccination. Yeah.
Heather, you want to back up and repeat, you were having connectivity issues there, and I didn't follow any of what you just said.
Okay. So the other piece that we did add, am I coming through better?
Yes.
Okay. Otherwise I could have Jenna jump in as well. So let me know if I cut out again. We added language around vaccinations, and it's really broad language right now. Again, we need to continue to watch what the can you
Jenna, do you know what point Heather is trying to make since she's having the connection issues?
Yes, yep. There's some added language to the temporary policy regarding vaccinations. That would include anyone working in healthcare. They'll be required to sign a declination form if they decline the vaccine. And also the policy indicates that employees will be required to follow masking and the PPE protocols.
Okay.
And I will say as well, as far as what we've seen so far from the American Rescue Plan Act, there are some added provisions for emergency paid sick leave that would cover time off for getting vaccinated. So more to come on that as well.
Mr. Chairman, may I ask a question of Heather and Jenna real quick for clarification for the committee?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, so attached to Heather, to your report is the policies last updated March 15th. Are those policies in front of the committee today for action, or are we deferring till next month? I'm not quite clear.
Okay, hopefully this works without video.
Okay.
We do need action so that we can extend the policies as written through September. And then I will also have to work with the union a bit on that. And then we will likely need additional action next month as we know.
Okay, so the committee is being asked to act on the policy as attached to your staff report today.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, if not, anything else?
Supervisor Bartlett has his
I
hand
have
up.
a question.
Go ahead, David.
I'm just wondering if maybe this is going too far out, but I was just wondering if somebody didn't want to be vaccinated that works for the county, if they would be required to wear, if we could require them to wear a mask until I guess the COVID goes away. I assume at one time or another, when everybody in, say, this building is is vaccinated, probably masks will go away at some point. But could we say, well, you know, Jenna didn't want to get vaccinated, so she should wear a mask? And I'm just picking on you, Jenna, not that I I know whether you're going to get vaccinated or not. I'm just throwing that out there, like we're going to do in the healthcare center.
Mr. Chair,
I'll go ahead, Mr. Miller.
in answer, actually, that's exactly what we're talking about for the rest of the county, is along the lines of what's happening at the neighbors, and has been the policy for some time with respect to the seasonal flu. We cannot require people to get vaccinations. We cannot require them to tell us if they've gotten vaccinated. If they don't volunteer that they have been vaccinated, we can require them to wear masks or other PPE until we get the all clear, if you will, from the CDC and endorsed by our local health department.
Is
All
that
right. That's not the way I read it, but I'll take your word for it if that's what it
That's
means.
my understanding.
That's
Now, I'll qualify it by, you know, people who know better than me may correct me later on, but that has been the conversation to date.
Then I read it wrong. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
any other questions? I did, if I may, Jenna, you referred back to some of these costs being possibly covered. And I guess that was my concern. I read under, you know, one of some agency had put it out that they felt some of this was part of the CARES Act, but it sounds like that's not, that interpretation is not as easy as we thought it was going to be. Thank you. Any other questions or comments based on that? If not, we need a motion to extend our policy until, and we're going here till this, is it September 31st? Is that, am I correct?
Yes.
Okay.
I would make that motion, Mr. Chair.
All right. Supervisor Story so moves.
Second.
Supervisor Lino or Calabri. I don't know who was first. I'm going to go with Supervisor Lino first. Seconds. Any other comments? Hearing none. All in favor of extending the policy till September 31st, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, we will go forward with that. The audit of vultures is our next item on the agenda. The vouchers for this month do total $737,918.56. At this point, would someone at least make a motion that we move forward with the vouchers? Chairman Bartlett so moves. Do I have a second?
Tim Lino.
Second by Supervisor Lino. Okay, any discussion on any of the voucher payments?
Mr. Chairman, I have a question.
Okay, go ahead, Supervisor Lino.
On page 2, under section 1110, there's a contract here for Deutsches Incorporated for $33,000, and it's a maintenance contract on what exactly?
It's an IT item. Dan, do you know?
I can I can verify that, but I believe that is the software that we use in the county treasurer's office and in the zoning to kind of store all of the tax information and all of that. So it's out on the public web where you can look up people that you look up the tax information on there. That is that software that is. I'm fairly certain that is, and I will follow up with the exact one, but I'm fairly
All
certain
right.
that's what that's for.
Second part of that question, is that a semi-annual or an annual cost?
Annual, and it's actually a piece of software that we're looking at right now because it's going to go through there's a major upgrade in store for it, which may have a cost in the future years. So we're looking at that.
All right.
Mr.
Anything
Chair,
else? Is Sheila Story? Supervisor Story, go ahead.
just right under that, maybe it's a dumb question, but why would we be paying for some operating supplies for the mayor? Directly. That's under 1110. It's 1120.
It'll be the sheriff, is it?
He does run a,
I could take a guess on that, and it's probably a plaque for
A
somebody
plaque for retiring employees would be my guess.
from his business,
Right.
So it should be his business and not him personally then, right?
right?
Because that might look a little bit better.
Mr. Chair, if I could add, it all depends on how it's invoiced. If
Okay.
he's a private entity or a sole proprietor, that's how it could be presented for payment. Typically, these are the vendors' names that are provided for us.
Okay.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments about any of the vouchers on the list?
I had one other one. I just can't find where it is here now, where I made note of it. Oh, here it is. It's under risk management. Page, I don't know which page it is. I can't see the page number on my thing here, but under risk management, there was a property claim to RT Miller Auto Body. Was it because of a property claim, meaning damage to property, or was it because of damage to one of our vehicles?
Yep, and they have the 4-digit number on the left column. That would help you
That
find it quick.
number is 1110.
Thank you. That is very likely, as you described, that typically the risk management budget is involved in paying those types of invoices for certain respects of accidents. I know we've had a couple of squad issues, accidents, deer hits, things like that. I can't speak to this one specifically, but those are the types of things that are charged to risk management.
It just made me question whether or not it was damage to the vehicle or damage to some property in the county. So that's why I questioned it. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I have another question.
Supervisor Lino, go ahead.
Yeah, workman's compensation premium, 65,563 annually, monthly. What's the
Heather, I don't know if you have a response on that. My experience is those are annual premiums, but I don't know if Heather, if you had any insights on that.
I don't, but I can certainly look into it with Keith.
All right, thank you.
That sounds like an annual premium based on my experience. You wouldn't be paying that quarterly, or otherwise we'd be spending an awful lot of money.
Yeah.
Especially, yeah.
Thank you. Anyone
All
else?
I have.
Thanks, Tim.
Yeah.
Supervisor Tripp has had his hand up quite a bit.
Okay, Supervisor Tripp.
I'm patient. I have a number of questions. The first one in 1110 on the first page, there's a voucher for $30,000 to governmentjobs.com. And I'm wondering if that reflects the fact that we're looking for a treasurer, a clerk, a number of high-level positions, or is that, I would guess that you use that website fairly often.
So governmentjobs.com Jenna, correct me if I'm wrong, that's what NeoGov bills their primary name as. And so NeoGov is our primary recruitment platform, but we also use it for onboarding. Employee personnel files are now electronic, and performance evaluations we're converting to electronic. So that's actually the annual fee for all of the things that we're using in that system. And then we do have that linked. So part of that package is it's linked over to websites such as Indeed.com and those kinds of things. So that's how we spread out our release our ads when we do recruit.
Thank you. I had it in my mind that it was only recruitment, but it's obviously more than that.
Yes.
It is for every position.
Yes.
On the second page, there are a number of charges to the county board, and they're all small, little piddly things. And I'm wondering how things get charged to the county board rather than somewhere else in administration. What's the criteria for charging 77 cents in internet access?
I can speak to.
How does that wind up in county board?
I can speak to that. In recent budget years, the county shifted to an allocation of IT costs because there was concern about the IT budget being so huge, because they were covering telephone, they were covering internet access, they were covering all the software. And decision was made, I believe actually my first budget here in 2019, to start allocating that out to all the different cost centers, including county board, because you do have one office for the county board chair with a phone, with computer access and all that other stuff. So this is part of the allocation that, and I'm answering for Dan because new guy card 3, you know, that was part of the strategy to distribute those out to the actual departments or cost center. And actually it's of benefit too, because then grants will cover their portion instead of covering it all on tax levy.
Yep, thank you. I just struck me as being a little odd. If I may, I'd like to go down to 1260, which is the medical examiner's budget. And I just have a comment here because this came up at Judiciary and Law. Because of the COVID epidemic, the state lab is really slow in processing blood test results, and Sacred Heart Hospital is not doing autopsies. So you're going to see increased expenses in those two areas because if the medical examiner needs a toxicology report done quickly, they're farming it out to private labs now, and they're sending autopsies to Ramsey. And I just thought I thought this might be a good place just to share that information, because you will see an increase in expenses in those two areas. And then I have one other thing that I'd like to ask about, and it's 1510. It's health done right. And I have complained about this before, and I'm going to complain about it again. If you look at health done right, 1510, there's a voucher for $1,040 labeled operating supplies to Wisconsin Public Broadcasting. If I'm not mistaken, that's for promotional material. I heard the Dunn County Health Department do a promotional piece on public radio, and I'm assuming that that's what this is. That operating supplies does not give us a very good idea of what this money is being used for. It's obvious it's going to Wisconsin Public Radio, but I've complained before about operating supplies being an overgeneral category that does not help us much when we're looking at these vouchers and making decisions about the appropriate use of the money. Okay, so that's my complaint. And now I'm finished. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair, if I could
Please
respond on one question.
certainly, Keith, our CFO, Keith Stry.
That wasn't
Thank
a question, that was a gripe.
No, I totally understand Supervisor Tripp, but I actually want to answer or confirm something on your prior comment about the medical examiner, and that is the potential increased costs for, what was that?
Ramsey County. for blood tests and forensics.
Blood tests and autopsies, yeah.
And do you happen to know if this is due to COVID-19?
I know that the blood tests are directly attributable to COVID-19 because the state lab is so backed up that anytime there's a toxicology report that needs to be done, and basically it's at the discretion of the medical examiner. She could choose to wait 6 months for a report. But in her professional opinion, and I would agree, it's not appropriate to make families wait that long. I did mention to her the fact that all COVID expenses need to be tracked, and she said, yes, she is doing that.
Thank you. And this is an example of where myself and my team and some departments as well, keeping their ears to the ground, because this is where we found hundreds of thousands of dollars that we were able to determine are eligible. So sometimes it's coming in snippets like this. I will follow up with the medical examiner to see if that's been claimed to this point, as well as my team. If not, certainly those might be offsetting revenues that certainly can help the county's budget. Instead of using it for tax levy, we can use the provider relief funds or the American Rescue Plan. So thank you for your indulgence on this.
No, I appreciate that. Thank you very much, Keith. And that helps to assuage my gripe from the other.
Anything else? Thank you, Jim. Okay, and I would agree with Mr. Tripp's, and I know that we've got a lot of backed up work here in the county, but we do. I just looked through this same report and I see operating supplies used for just a whole lot of things that don't really make sense that they would be supplies. So and if they are. Fine,
Mr. Chair, not to prolong the conversation, certainly, but that has been a challenge through my whole career, working with departments on classifying it. And I'm not complaining. I'm just saying that is a challenge. Now, operating supplies versus office supplies can be two different things. Office supplies are specifically to administrative type things. Operating supplies truly can be differing things if it ties to how they operate. But I don't disagree with the comments on this one as well. It may be just a communication factor, but it has been a challenge throughout my career. And sometimes it's reminders and try to catch. But with the hundreds of thousands of transactions on an $80+ million budget, it'd be impossible for me to police all that.
Oh, sure. Thank you, Keith. There are no other comments. We need to approve the vouchers. All those in favor of saying aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, vouchers are approved. Thank you all for your enlightenment and as we go along and getting those questions taken care of. Consideration for reports, resolutions, and ordinances to the county board from this committee. 7A on our agenda is an ordinance amending the county code of ordinances, section 5.1.8.g, personnel administration. It's regarding the county board confirmation of the county manager's appointments. Mr. Miller, would you like to summarize that?
Sure. I'll kick us off in any event. So we talked about this ordinance last meeting in February. Right now, as written, it says that when the county manager hires a department head, that hire is confirmed by the county board. We made the observation that the way our system is set up, the confirmation is often a superfluous step, more ceremonial than really having a lot to do with the actual hiring process, and suggested striking that. The committee response back was, well, we do want involvement by the county board in these hiring processes for departments and divisions. And staff said, okay, we will we will look at our hiring policy and give you a policy or provide a copy of the policy that shows the role that the county board supervisors do play, which principally is in the form, it's a document that's been prepared by Heather Murray and her team. It's attached to the staff report in your packet. It's principally in the form of the chair for a standing committee that has oversight of a department or a division for which we're doing a hire of the manager of that department or the division, being on the interview team and also having the discretion to bring top two candidates before the entire committee of the county board to interview before the hire is made. That way, supervisors do have a role, a very important role, stay informed in the process of hiring the managers without necessitating then the delay that we sometimes get into where we have to take the confirmation or take the issue in front of the entire county board for confirmation. So you've got the document. Heather, did I leave anything out in my summary on that you think is important?
Just a clarification. So this is the procedure, and what I provided in the packet was the overall recruitment and selection procedure. So this is what we've rolled out for all positions, and then it breaks it down, depending on the type of position. And so really with this document, we've tried to create a centralized document and reference for all hiring managers. And then in it, as Paul alluded to, is the discussion of the committee chair being involved in making the determination of bringing the top two candidates to the committee for review.
And that would be discretionary on the part of the chair of the standing committee. So in some cases, the chair may feel it's enough that there's the initial interview team, that their participation is sufficient, and that the offer of employment to a successful candidate can be made at that point. In other cases, the committee chair may want to take the top candidates in front of the entire committee for their opportunity to interview. It's discretionary.
Okay. Any questions by any of the supervisors? Hearing none.
If I may, then what you have in the back of the policy is the ordinance itself, and what staff is requesting is that the committee forward the ordinance for adoption by the county board.
Also move.
Okay, Chairman Bartlett so moves. We have a second. John Calabrese seconds the motion. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. We'll forward this ordinance to the county board at our next county board meeting. Next, we have a ordinance amending section 7.2.10 of the Code of Ordinances related to the disposal of surplus property owned by the county. And again, there was a very nice, this was written up and informed of how this, with actually a full process of how this would take place, depending on what type of material it was, or whether it could be used by another department, or any information you want to add to that, Paul? Or
sure, just very briefly. So we have recently worked with Scott Nobbyfeld, our facilities director, with IT department, and with the CFO and the HR director. It had been a while since we had reviewed our inventory and surplus inventory policies. And there is a provision, there is a section in the code that deals with that. And Scott Nobbyfeld put together what you have in your packet, which talks about the inventory, what our policy is on the inventorying. This is furniture, equipment, vehicles, and then a policy on what we do when they're no longer needed by a department. process that offers it first to other departments. And then takes it to auction through the state auction site, unless it's not something that can be utilized, in which case it talks about the procedure for disposal, proper disposal. The inventory process includes going back to labeling things that are county property. This really came up again here with COVID. We have so many employees who are working remotely. They have county equipment at home, and we're trying to help make it very clear. So there's just no confusion about county property. We owe it to the taxpayers to be able to account for equipment and furniture, vehicles that are purchased with taxpayer money, and show proper not only inventory but proper disposal when we are done with those kinds of things, that the money's going back into the coffers, etc. So Corporation Counsel also was involved and has drafted an ordinance that would basically repeal and replace the section of the County Code of Ordinances related to the disposal of surplus property. I'll defer to Nick Lang if there's anything he wants to add on this.
I think it's laid out pretty clear in the short memo where I summarize the changes. The current ordinance we have is not very detailed. And this gives a little more latitude for delegation and imposes some requirements that are, things that will make Keith happy, which is accounting and sales tax and so forth. And then, provides for retention if it's something that would be useful for another department or sale.
So the committee is asked to review the policies on inventory and disposal of surplus property, review the proposed ordinance related to disposal of surplus property, and forward it to the full county board for action.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Corp Counsel, for that. Any questions for myself or for either one of those two? Dave Bartlett, Chairman Bartlett, go ahead.
There's a lot of mention in here of Wisconsin surplus auction or other auction sites and the payment coming through. I didn't notice, and maybe I missed it. Is there a way, just if we decide not to auction something, excuse me, or if, auction sites are real popular right now, but 10 years ago they weren't very popular, and 10, 15 years from now they might not be again. Is there a way that we can just go out and for bids on property instead of having to take it through the auction? I didn't see where that was an option, and I'm just asking about that.
I don't believe we anticipated going to bid, but Nick, do you recall something different?
Subsection D of the proposed ordinance language allows a lot of different options. So it can be sold by a private or public sale via the county website, or just having people come in and look at stuff and purchase it on the open market or under competitive bids, whichever method is deemed most advantageous, to the county. And
where are you seeing that?
That's in the draft ordinance, in the ordinance language, not in the policy.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Policy. The policy can be amended as necessary by the purchasing agent. In my understanding, the way they're working right now on this is Paul is meeting with Scott Nabefeld and Dan to talk about, and I think others, to talk about how to manage the property and account for it responsibly. And so my guess is that they'll implement this ordinance by working on the policy and then modifying it, as necessary. But it can provide for competitive bids or just, sort of a garage sale type approach. Whatever.
I'm sorry, I didn't, I focused more on this other,
You were focusing on the
Pages.
policy, and I understand that,
Yes.
Chairman Bartlett, and
and under D, now that I've read it and I understand it a little better, I'm a lot happier with this in case things change in the near future or the long term. Thank you. That we don't have to come back all of a sudden, or we find we're doing it wrong. That's my what bothers me all the time. So thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Okay. Entertain a motion that we would, the department, our committee would send this on to the county board for consideration by the whole board. Anyone care to make that motion?
Tripp moves.
Thank you, Supervisor Tripp, for your motion. Second to that?
I'll second Supervisor Leno.
Thank you, Supervisor Leno, for your second. All those in favor, would like to say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, passes. We'll move this ordinance to the county board for its consideration. Next,
Mr. Chair, if I could just make a comment after the fact. I wanted to point out, under the current ordinance language, the Committee on Administration is actually obligated to place value on all the property that has to be sold. And so there is a huge time-saving element to this. We haven't been doing that anyway, but I just wanted to point that out.
I did see that, and I, if for nothing else, it would be nice not to have to consider that at a upcoming meetings. Next item is 8A. And this item is a consideration of a claim by Hoff and Sons Incorporated. And at this point, we would like to have a motion to take this committee into closed session.
I move we go into closed session.
Okay, thank you. Supervisor Story so moves. Is there a second to that?
I'll second Tim Leno.
Supervisor Tim Leno seconds.
And then this should be a roll call vote.
I can call the
Okay.
roll.
All right.
Okay. Supervisor Story,
Yes.
Supervisor Story recorded as yes. Supervisor Leno,
Yes.
Supervisor Leno recorded as yes. Supervisor Tripp,
Yes.
Supervisor Tripp recorded as yes. Supervisor Calabrese,
Yes.
Supervisor Calabrese recorded as yes. Chairman Headland,
Yes.
Chairman Headland recorded as yes, and Chairman Bartlett.
Yes.
Chairman Bartlett recorded as yes. So we will stop the live feed. Krista, please let us know when that's